Welcome to Grow Leap Academy, the podcast that helps you uncover the hidden beliefs keeping you small and gives you the tools to rewrite your money story for good. Hello and welcome. We're about to embark on a deep dive into territory that feels, well, both universal and intensely personal. We're exploring the hidden forces that have quietly, often kind of invisibly, shaped your relationship with money throughout your life. Think of this as an excavation digging down to understand where those fundamental thoughts, feelings, and assumptions about wealth, earning, and deserving actually came from.
That's absolutely right. It's so easy to think our financial behaviors are just, you know, logical choices or maybe responses to our immediate circumstances. But underneath all that, there's this whole operating system running, one built on beliefs we absorbed long before we ever, well, balanced a checkbook or even thought about investing. And many of these beliefs weren't consciously chosen. They were simply handed down, almost becoming your default settings.
Right. And for a lot of people, those default settings are actually, well, they're working against them, aren't they? They might sound like common sense, maybe even sound like moral wisdom, but they subtly limit potential, create internal conflict, and yeah, keep people from achieving the financial freedom they really desire and deserve.
The mission of this deep dive today is really about awareness, bringing these subconscious rules right up to the surface, because you simply cannot consciously change a script you don't even realize you're following. This is really for anyone who's felt that familiar squeeze of anxiety around money or that reluctance to even discuss finances, maybe that frustrating cycle of feeling stuck despite working really hard. We're going to shine a light on the foundations of your money mindset so you can begin to intentionally build something stronger, much stronger.
Okay, so let's unpack this right from the start. Have you, listening right now, ever paused to consider the source of your beliefs about money? I don't just mean your current financial situation, but the really deep-seated ideas you hold. About people who are rich, maybe. About whether wanting more is okay or bad. About how hard you think you have to work.
Because every single interaction you have with money, every earning opportunity you chase or maybe pass up, every dollar you save or spend, every financial goal you set or maybe let slide, it's all filtered through this lens of belief. These aren't necessarily things you decided on in a, adult logical way. They're more like hidden rules operating in the background, almost like background noise you've gotten so used to you don't even really hear it anymore.
They just feel like facts, don't they? Like that's just the way things are.
Precisely. And that's the really insidious nature of them. They're absorbed over time, subtly, from so many different inputs. Your parents, obviously, what they said or maybe what they didn't say about money, how they handled it. Your cultural background plays a huge role. The messages about wealth or poverty within your community.
Yeah.
Religious teachings, which can sometimes frame money in really complex, sometimes contradictory ways. Critical childhood experiences, maybe times of real lack, or conversely, abundance. Even school, stories you heard, or just the reactions you witnessed when money came up in conversation. It all sinks in.
It wasn't like a formal class, was it? Money Beliefs 101. It was just soaked in year after year, mostly subconsciously.
These messages, these repeated phrases, these observed behaviors, they were hammered home, sometimes overtly, often just subtly, until they solidified into your personal financial truth. They became the internal guidelines you navigate by. And so many of them sound incredibly common, even virtuous on the surface.
Oh yeah, the phrases we've all heard a million times, they echo, don't they?
Like, money doesn't grow on trees. Which, okay, yes, literally true, but the underlying belief it plants is one of scarcity, right? And intense difficulty around getting money. Or you have to work hard for every penny. Sounds like solid work ethic, and it can be, but what if it limits your ability to earn in ways that aren't just trading hours for dollars? What then? Talking about money is rude? This one's huge. It shuts down the very conversations needed for growth, for learning, for negotiating. Rich people are greedy. That immediately demonizes wealth, and, by extension, anyone who achieves it makes you wary of becoming one yourself. Or that quiet internal one, I'll never be good with money. That's a belief that pretty much guarantees you won't be, because why try?
It's really fascinating how instantly recognizable so many of those are. You hear them and just nod.
And because they're largely subconscious, they just run silently in the background, dictating so much. They influence how much you think you're even worthy of earning in the first place. They impact whether you feel compelled to hoard every penny or maybe spend it as fast as it comes in. They shape your willingness to take calculated risks for growth versus staying perpetually small and quote-unquote safe. They even affect whether you can genuinely celebrate your financial progress or if you feel kind of uncomfortable, maybe even a bit resentful about having more.
And this is the critical insight here, isn't it? These beliefs, they aren't passive spectators, they're active players.
Not at all. They are actively shaping your financial reality, day in, day out. They're either building a foundation for abundance and real freedom, or they're installing these invisible limitations that hold you back. There's really no neutral ground here. Your beliefs are either serving you or they're limiting you, one or the other.
So if you've ever felt that frustrating ceiling on your income, that feeling of, I just can't get past this number, or maybe found yourself hitting financial goals only to somehow slide back, or experienced that peculiar guilt when you actually do want more for yourself or your family, that little voice saying, shouldn't you just be grateful?
It's highly, highly likely that these hidden beliefs are the invisible hand guiding those outcomes, pulling the strings from behind the curtain. You can try to implement all the latest financial strategies, try every budgeting app under the sun. But if your underlying programming tells you that having more money is bad or unsafe or just not possible for someone like you, well, you'll be swimming against a really powerful internal current.
So it's not just about copying the visible habits of people who seem financially successful. That's just surface level.
Exactly. The real transformation, the lasting change, it happens at the belief level. When you update that internal operating system, those external habits and strategies, they become so much easier, more natural, definitely more sustainable. Like the saying goes, once the beliefs are aligned, the rest really is. Well, it's just math in motion. You figure out the practical steps, you take consistent action, but you're no longer fighting your own subconscious mind every step of the way.
Okay, right. Let's dive deeper then. We've identified the concept, how these things work. Now, based on the material we've been exploring for this deep dive, let's shine a spotlight on 7 specific, deeply toxic beliefs. These are incredibly common and, frankly, incredibly damaging. And the first one we're going to tackle is perhaps the most widespread. And paradoxically, it often sounds the most, well, virtuous.
Yes, it's the belief that money corrupts.
Let's pull that one apart.
Yeah.
Because it feels big.
It's a narrative that's just woven so deeply into our culture, isn't it? We see it constantly in movies, read it in books, hear it in cautionary tales passed down through generations. This idea that gaining wealth somehow inherently changes people for the worse, makes them selfish, disconnected, unethical. It pops up in phrases like, money is the root of all evil, which is actually a misquote, by the way. The original says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, which is different. Or just blanket statements like, all rich people are greedy, or that classic warning, just wait, once they get money, they'll change. You know the one.
It feels like taking a moral stance, doesn't it? Like you're protecting your own integrity by being wary of money, keeping it at arm's length.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It taps right into a legitimate fear of losing your core values, of becoming someone you genuinely dislike. But here's the really powerful counter perspective that the material we looked at highlights. It is not money itself that corrupts. Money is neutral. It's just a tool. It is the person who is or isn't corruptible. What money does is amplify. It amplifies what is already there.
Amplify? How do you mean? Like turns up the volume?
Exactly like turning up the volume. Think of money as a magnifying glass, or maybe a force multiplier. If someone is already fundamentally selfish or deeply insecure or maybe prone to unethical behavior, well, giving them more money gives them more power and more resources to express those qualities on a much larger scale. They can build bigger walls, literally or figuratively. They can fund larger selfish projects. They can exert more negative influence. The money just gives them more leverage for who they already are.
Okay, that makes a pretty stark kind of sense when you put it that way. But what about the flip side?
The flip side is equally true, and this is the crucial part this money corrupts belief completely obscures. If someone is genuinely kind, truly generous, fundamentally ethical, maybe driven by a real purpose and a desire to contribute positively, well, more money gives them more capacity and more tools to express those qualities. They can be more effectively generous, invest in more solutions to problems they care about, create more positive change, support more people, amplify their positive impact on the world.
So money isn't the driver of the character change. It's more like the fuel for the pre-existing character engine, good or bad.
Exactly. Money is a tool. It's a resource. And often, it acts like a mirror. It reflects and amplifies what's already present deep within a person. But here's the critical consequence for you, the listener, if you're holding on to this belief. If you deeply, truly believe money is corrupting or inherently bad, you will subconsciously resist having more of it. You'll push it away.
Because deep down, you don't want to become that bad person the narrative warns about.
Precisely. You might find yourself consistently undercharging for your valuable work, or overgiving your time and energy away for free when you shouldn't be. You might avoid crucial conversations about finances, negotiations, investments, planning. Or you might subtly sabotage opportunities that arise to increase your income or build wealth. You could unconsciously keep yourself stuck in a zone of just enough, or even not quite enough, because having more money feels like it somehow compromises your integrity or core values. It clashes with that internalized fear of corruption.
And this is such a tragedy, isn't it? Especially for people who genuinely are good people, who do care about others, who have incredible potential to do so much good in the world if they had more resources.
It's the ultimate self-imposed limitation. It really is. And the material asks a really challenging question here, one worth sitting with. If you are a person with integrity, with empathy, with vision, someone who truly wants to make a positive impact, why would you unconsciously push away the very resources that could magnify your capacity for good? Why should the resources for impact primarily flow towards those who might misuse them, while those with noble intentions actively limit themselves out of fear?
Wow. That really does flip the script completely. It's not money is bad. It's more like money in the wrong hands can be used for bad things. But money in your hands, assuming you have good intentions, could be a force for immense good.
And until you release that deep-seated fear that money itself will magically change you into someone you don't want to be, you'll maintain that internal barrier. You'll keep preventing yourself from fully receiving the abundance that could fuel your purpose, your impact, your freedom.
So the powerful reframe this deep dive offers, the new belief to install is, money doesn't corrupt me. Money gives me the power to expand what I already value.
That's the truth to really internalize. Repeat it. Write it down. Feel it. It's not just a nice, fluffy idea. It's a direct challenge to potentially decades of subtle negative programming. Because when you truly believe that, you can build and receive wealth with a clear conscience, seeing money clearly as a tool for the good you wish to create. And speaking of building, that leads us beautifully into another pervasive belief, one that sounds like a virtue but often leads straight to burnout and frustration.
Yes, the classic hustle trap. That deeply ingrained idea that you have to work really, really hard to get rich.
Oh, this one is practically woven into the fabric of so many cultures, isn't it? We're taught from childhood that effort equals reward. Simple equation. The early bird gets the worm. No pain, no gain. Just put your head down and work harder. It feels like a fundamental rule of life and success. Seems undeniable.
And hard work is necessary at times, right? I mean, you can't build anything worthwhile just sitting on the couch dreaming about it.
Absolutely, no question. Grit, discipline, putting in the effort, these are crucial qualities, especially when you're starting something new, mastering a difficult skill, getting a business off the ground. Initial hard work is often essential. But here's the critical distinction the material really emphasizes. Hard work alone is not what creates significant lasting wealth.
The evidence is kind of everywhere when you stop and look, isn't it?
Think about it logically. If sheer effort, just raw hours and sweat, was the only path to wealth, then people in the most physically demanding or time-intensive jobs, think about manual laborers, caregivers working multiple shifts back-to-back, teachers dedicating endless hours well beyond the school day, they would be the wealthiest members of our society. But often, sadly, they are the most exhausted and struggle the most financially relative to the sheer amount of effort they consistently expend.
So if it's not just about brute force effort, not just grinding harder and harder, what is the key ingredient that's missing from that equation?
The core insight, the missing piece, is that wealth typically comes from leverage. It comes from smart strategy. It comes from ownership. And crucially, it comes from building systems. Systems that allow your work and the value you create to scale far, far beyond your individual time and your direct physical effort.
Can you paint a picture of that difference? Make it a bit more concrete.
Sure. Imagine someone we'll call Person A. Person A is incredibly diligent, undeniably hardworking. They show up for their job every day, put in 50, maybe 60 hours a week, are highly productive during those hours. They're trading their valuable time and skills directly for a salary or an hourly wage. They're definitely working hard. No one can deny that. Now contrast that with Person B. Person B might actually work fewer hours some weeks, maybe 40 or even less. But their primary focus isn't just doing the work hour by hour. Their focus is on building something that earns money even when they aren't actively physically present. Maybe they've built a software product that customers buy automatically online, or an online course that sells globally while they sleep. Maybe they've built a portfolio of investments that generate passive income, or a business where dedicated employees or automated systems handle the day-to-day operations.
So Person A is paid linearly, directly for their time input. Person B is potentially paid exponentially for the value and the reach of the system or the asset they built.
Exactly. Person A is often stuck in that hustle trap. Their earning potential is fundamentally capped by the number of hours they can physically work in a day or a week. There's a hard limit. Person B, on the other hand, is building a machine or an asset that multiplies their initial effort and can generate outcomes, generate value around the clock, regardless of their direct involvement at that moment. The world, the market, ultimately rewards the value created and the scale of that value, not just the raw amount of effort poured in. Effort is input. Value and scale are outputs.
Okay, so how does holding on to that hard work alone belief actively sabotage us? How does it get in the way?
Well, if you deeply believe, down in your bones, that money must come through struggle, through exhaustion, through constant grind, you will unconsciously resist financial ease. You'll resist opportunities that seem too simple or maybe feel too lucky. You might actually feel guilty if money starts flowing more easily, or if a system you build allows you to earn without constant, direct, painful effort.
That feeling of, it can't be that easy, right? There must be a catch. I must need to suffer more for this.
Precisely. Or you might feel like you don't truly deserve the money unless you've visibly suffered for it, which can lead you to subconsciously return to patterns of overwork and burnout because that feels more familiar, more comfortable, more earned. You get trapped equating your effort directly with your worth, rather than focusing on the value you create and how to scale it.
But the reality for people who manage to build significant wealth looks different from that constant grind.
It really does. They understand that while that initial hard work is often crucial to build the asset or the system in the first place, the ultimate goal isn't to be a perpetually overworked laborer within that system forever. The goal is to build the asset itself, the business, the product, the intellectual property, the investment portfolio, which can then generate wealth and, ideally, buy back their time and freedom.
So the hard work gets you to the starting line, maybe builds the foundation.
Exactly. But the smart work is designing, building, and optimizing the machine so it can eventually free you from the need for constant, direct hustle. The reframe offered here is really sharp and clarifying. Hard work might get me started, but only smart work will get me free.
That definitely prompts a lot of self-reflection, doesn't it? Where in your own life, listening now, are you still maybe glorifying struggle, equating effort directly with worth? Where are you perhaps resisting easier paths or opportunities for leverage because they don't involve enough visible pain? What systems or assets could you start building today, even incredibly small ones, that could eventually generate value beyond your direct time input?
Because the path to genuine financial freedom isn't paved solely with sheer exhaustion. It's paved with strategic thinking, with finding leverage points, and with building things that compound your effort over time. On that note, let's pivot to a belief that often sounds almost humble or enlightened, but which is perhaps one of the most counterproductive money beliefs you can possibly hold on to.
Right, and that's the seemingly virtuous statement. Money isn't important.
This one feels tricky, doesn't it? Because it touches on genuinely important values. We all know, intuitively, that things like love, health, meaningful relationships, finding purpose, these are fundamentally invaluable, right? They're priceless. And in contrasting those truly priceless aspects of life with money, it's really easy to fall into the trap of dismissing money's importance entirely, just writing it off.
And it sounds kind of spiritual, doesn't it? Like you've risen above the material fray, you're focused on higher things.
It does. It has that veneer. And let's be crystal clear. There are many, many things far more important than money, unquestionably. Your health is more important. Your relationships are more important. Living a life aligned with your deepest values is absolutely more important. That part is 100% true. But saying money isn't important at all is a fundamentally flawed and honestly often damaging conclusion to draw from that truth. Because, frankly, being perpetually broke doesn't magically grant you perfect health or deep relationships or spiritual enlightenment either. In fact, it often hinders them.
Yeah, a serious lack of money can create immense stress that actively undermines all those truly important things. Health suffers, relationships suffer.
Exactly. Often when people say money isn't important, what they really mean deep down is there are things more important than money. Which, again, is absolutely true. No argument there. But stating that money itself holds no importance is where the belief becomes toxic and dangerously disconnected from the reality of how the world actually works. Because, whether we like it or admit it, money touches almost every single area of our lives.
Just think about the practicalities for a second.
The quality of the housing you can afford, the safety of your neighborhood, the food you put on the table, your access to quality health care, your ability to properly care for your children or support aging parents. the educational opportunities available to you and your family, your ability to take time off work when you're sick or need a break, or travel for important family events, your freedom to pursue a career you actually love versus one that simply pays the bills. The simple daily choices you can make about how you spend your time and energy. All of these are profoundly impacted by your financial reality. It's unavoidable. And critically, your ability to contribute meaningfully back to the world to support causes you deeply believe in, to invest in your community, to help others in tangible ways. All of that is significantly amplified by having financial resources.
So, money isn't the ultimate goal itself, maybe, but it's the essential tool or the fuel needed for achieving many of the goals that are truly important to us.
Precisely. As the material for this deep dive really highlights, money isn't just about accumulating more stuff. It's really about building a life of options. It's about creating space to breathe financially, space to be creative without desperation, space to rest and recharge, space to give back generously. It's about having agency, the genuine power to make meaningful choices about how you live your life and how you contribute to the world around you.
And the real danger, the hidden cost of clinging to that belief money isn't important, is how it unconsciously repels money from your life. It pushes it away.
It's a fundamental principle. You don't attract, you don't hold on to, you certainly don't master something you secretly disrespect or deem unimportant. If you carry this belief deep down, you will inevitably find ways to keep money at bay. You'll avoid looking at your bank statements. You'll shy away from negotiating your salary or your rates. You'll feel inherently uncomfortable discussing fees for your services, or you'll simply neglect learning about basic saving and investing principles because, well, it's not important.
It creates this really strange, almost painful disconnect, doesn't it? You might outwardly say, oh, money doesn't matter that much to me, while simultaneously experiencing immense stress over bills, feeling trapped in a job you hate purely for the paycheck, or watching opportunities for real financial growth pass you by because engaging with money feels uncomfortable or somehow unimportant or beneath you.
That's often not detachment, it's denial. It's a defense mechanism, likely rooted in a learned discomfort with a topic, maybe from childhood, or perhaps a fear of appearing shallow or materialistic if you actually prioritize your financial well-being.
The reframe that really cuts through this denial is, money isn't everything, but it touches everything that matters.
That's the balanced truth to embrace. It's not about worshiping money or making it your sole focus in life, absolutely not. It's about recognizing its profound impact as a tool and respecting its power to facilitate a life of greater freedom, more meaningful choices, and potentially much larger positive impact. When you stop viewing money as some kind of threat to your core values and start seeing it clearly as a resource for living out your values, your entire financial world begins to shift. And honestly, in the hands of someone with genuinely good intentions, money truly can be a powerful engine for positive change in their own life and in the world.
Okay, from there, let's move to a belief that often lurks even deeper, maybe quieter, a kind of internal resistance that can silently sabotage opportunity and growth without us even noticing.
Yes, the insidious belief that whispers, I don't deserve more.
This one rarely announces itself with trumpets, does it? It's usually much more subtle. It's that hesitation you feel right before applying for a job you know you're qualified for. It's that lump that forms in your throat when you even think about raising your prices. It's the quiet, nagging guilt you might feel when things are actually going well financially. It's that tendency to shrink back when a real opportunity knocks on your door.
It shows up internally in thoughts like, who am I to charge that much? Or that promotion. Maybe it should go to someone else, someone more. Or I should just be grateful for what I already have, stop wanting more. Or I'm not really skilled enough for that level. Or even I haven't worked hard enough for it, ironically, even if you've been working yourself completely to the bone.
At its core, it boils down to a feeling of insufficient worthiness, right? For abundance, for freedom, maybe even just for ease.
Absolutely. And the material we reviewed emphasizes that this particular belief is a silent abundance killer. It really is. It creates these invisible ceilings on your income and your overall success. It triggers self-sabotage just when you're on the verge of a significant breakthrough, causing you to pull back, make poor choices, or just find ways to keep yourself playing small.
And the deepest, most painful irony here, this belief, I don't deserve more, is often most prevalent, most deeply ingrained among those who are actually the most giving, the most ethical, the most hardworking, the most fine-hearted people.
Exactly. The people who are maybe conditioned from a young age to be humble, to be modest, to always put others first, to never ask for too much. People who were taught implicitly or explicitly that wanting significant financial success is somehow selfish or greedy or maybe just makes you a bad person. They were essentially programmed to equate their worth with sacrifice, with struggle, not with their innate capacity to create value and receive abundance joyfully in return.
But the crucial truth this belief completely obscures is that deserving wealth, deserving more, isn't about reaching some impossible perfect standard or proving your worth through endless suffering.
No, it's fundamentally about granting yourself permission. That's the key. Permission to receive the abundance that naturally aligns with the value you create in the world. Permission to grow, to expand, to step into a bigger version of yourself and live a more abundant, impactful life. Not because you're inherently better than anyone else, but because playing small, keeping your unique gifts and potential constrained by a lack of resources, ultimately doesn't serve you or the world around you.
When good people stay stuck in that "I don't deserve more" loop, everyone loses out, don't they?
That's exactly right. Their creativity remains underdeveloped or underfunded. Their capacity for generosity is limited by their own feelings of scarcity. Their message, their potential positive impact, gets stifled or muted. The world is literally deprived of the unique contributions they could be making if they were operating from a place of financial empowerment and genuine self-worthiness.
So, if you've noticed a pattern in your own life, maybe consistently underpricing your services or products, avoiding asking for what you know you're worth in salary negotiations, holding back brilliant ideas because they feel too big for you, or feeling genuinely uncomfortable receiving compliments, rewards, or even just fair payment for your work,
Then it's really time to investigate if this "I don't deserve more" programming is running the show behind the scenes. It's almost certainly an old voice, likely rooted in childhood experiences, maybe past traumas, or just pervasive societal conditioning that subtly benefits from you staying quiet and small. Remember, it's programming, it's conditioning. It is not an accurate reflection of your actual value or your inherent potential.
the reframe that challenges this limiting idea head on is incredibly powerful, almost liberating, just to say, I don't need to earn more worthiness, I'd only need to allow more possibility.
You don't need to become worthy. You inherently are. The real task is to consciously drop the deeply ingrained belief that you aren't worthy of receiving abundance, and instead give yourself active permission to step into the greater possibility that is already available to you. You serve the world most effectively by expanding your own capacity and using that increased capacity to lift others up, not by staying small and limited yourself. And yes, as the material notes, embracing this idea might feel uncomfortable initially. That discomfort is often the feeling of stretching against an old, tight, restrictive boundary. It's a sign of growth.
Speaking of boundaries and limitations, let's move to another pervasive belief, one rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of how wealth is actually created in the world.
Right, the belief that operates from a place of scarcity and says, if I win, someone else loses.
This one can be really subtle. It often hides behind a feeling of guilt when you achieve some success, a nagging fear that your gain must somehow come at someone else's direct expense. It shows up as feeling uncomfortable when money comes perhaps a bit too easily, or when your success seems to be outpacing that of your friends, family, or community members.
It can manifest internally as thoughts like, I don't want to outshine anyone, or if I charge more for my service, I'm taking money someone else desperately needs. Or the direct underlying thought, my getting ahead inevitably means someone else gets left behind. At its core, it's the fear that achieving personal success requires stepping over other people or taking resources from a limited pool.
This is the classic zero-sum game fallacy applied to wealth, isn't it? The idea that wealth is like a fixed amount of pie, and if you take a bigger slice, there's automatically less left for everyone else.
Exactly. It's the scarcity mindset projected onto the entire economy and onto personal success narratives. But the fundamental truth that the material we looked at really emphasizes is that money and wealth are generally not a fixed pie. They function much more like a bakery.
A bakery, I love that image. Explain that.
Because more can always be created. Value is generated constantly. New goods and services are invented every day. Problems are solved on an ever larger scale. New opportunities are built where none existed before. Wealth isn't typically a static resource that exists in some finite amount just waiting to be divided up. It's usually a dynamic outcome, created by people who innovate, who serve customers well, who build businesses, who invest wisely, who bring genuine value to the world in countless ways.
So when you create genuine value and you earn more ethically as a result,
You are generally not taking from others. You are actually adding to the collective system. When you build a thriving ethical business, for example, you create jobs, you pay suppliers fairly, you circulate money through the economy, you pay taxes that fund public services, you contribute overall. When you develop a truly valuable product or service, you solve problems for people, you improve their lives in some way. Ethical wealth creation is typically a net positive, a value add to society. Your success can inspire others, it models what's possible, and it also creates demand and further opportunities that simply didn't exist before you acted.
But this belief can feel incredibly real and deeply ingrained, can't it? Particularly if you grew up in an environment where resources genuinely were scarce.
Absolutely. If your childhood was marked by real financial struggle, by witnessing difficult trade-offs being made constantly, by hearing phrases that emphasize lack and limitation, we can't afford that, money is tight, that scarcity mindset can be deeply imprinted, almost at a cellular level. Breaking the belief that your gain must automatically equal someone else's loss can feel subconsciously like you're abandoning your roots or betraying your community by daring to have more than they did or do.
But the crucial perspective shift here is this. You actually honor where you came from, not by staying stuck in the same limitations, but by evolving beyond them, and then using your increased capacity to help others rise as well, by reaching back.
Exactly. When good, ethical people build wealth and succeed, it doesn't diminish what's available for others. It actually expands the collective imagination of what's possible for everyone. It provides resources for philanthropy and community investment. It creates opportunities through employment and spending, and it models a potential path that others might then feel empowered to follow themselves.
So the reframe here really liberates you from that old, unnecessary fear. My success doesn't steal from anyone. It creates space for others to rise.
Embrace that fully. Your ethical gain contributes positively to the whole system. It frees you from the paralyzing guilt that might be slowing you down or holding you back, and it replaces that guilt with a much healthier, more empowering sense of responsibility for how you will consciously choose to use your increasing resources to benefit not just yourself, but others too. You don't need guilt for building wealth ethically, but you absolutely need a strong sense of purpose and responsibility for what you'll do with it.
Okay. Speaking of building wealth, let's tackle perhaps the most common, most self-sabotaging belief out there. The one that keeps millions and millions of people stuck on the sidelines of wealth creation entirely.
Right. The incredibly pervasive and paralyzing idea that investing is only for rich people.
This is so prevalent. And the surface logic seems simple, even compelling. Look, I barely have enough money to pay my bills or maybe save a tiny bit. How could I possibly invest? That's for people who already have lots of money to spare.
It sounds like basic common sense, doesn't it? But this belief completely misunderstands the fundamental relationship between the act of investing and the process of building wealth over time. It's a perfect example of mistaking the outcome being wealthy for the path required to get there.
And it creates a really damaging cycle, doesn't it? A self-fulfilling prophecy.
A truly vicious cycle. You don't invest because you believe you're not rich enough, and then you don't get rich, partly because you're not investing your money so it can grow. The fundamental truth is, investing is generally not the result of being wealthy. It is one of the primary vehicles people use consistently over time to become wealthy.
It's the crucial difference between your money just sitting idle in a checking account, maybe even losing purchasing power to inflation year after year, versus actively putting your money to work so it has the potential to generate more money for you.
Exactly. And the old outdated notion that you need thousands upon thousands of dollars or a fancy financial advisor in a suit or some deep complex understanding of global markets just to get started, well, that's simply not true anymore. It's outdated thinking. What is required, first and foremost, is a fundamental shift in your identity and your mindset, shifting from being solely a consumer in the economy to also becoming an owner.
Let's dig into that consumer versus owner idea a bit more. What does that look like?
Okay, think about your typical daily or weekly activities. You buy coffee, right? You subscribe to Netflix or other streaming services. You wear clothes from major brands. You use a smartphone made by a huge tech company. You fill up your car with gas from a big energy corporation. In all of those transactions, you are primarily acting as a consumer. You're exchanging your hard-earned money for goods and services provided by these companies. Nothing wrong with that. We all consume. But notice, you're participating in their wealth-building machine. Your money is flowing to the owners and the shareholders of these companies.
Right. I'm the customer, essentially fueling someone else's engine, their growth.
Exactly. Now imagine this. What if, instead of only being a customer, you also became a tiny owner, even a very small one? What if some percentage of the money you earned wasn't just spent on consumption, but was strategically and consistently used to acquire small ownership stakes in profitable companies or other income-producing assets?
Okay, but that still feels like something only rich people do. That's the barrier.
And that feeling, that assumption, is precisely the limiting belief we need to dismantle right here, right now. They do it because it builds wealth over time. That's how many of them got there. And the really fantastic news is that access to investing has been significantly democratized over the last decade or two. You absolutely do not need a fortune to start today. Not even close. Modern investment platforms, many accessible right on your phone, allow you to buy fractional shares, meaning you can own a small piece of an expensive stock, like Amazon or Apple, instead of needing thousands of dollars to buy one whole share. You can invest in broadly diversified index funds or ETFs, which are like baskets holding tiny pieces of hundreds or even thousands of different companies, often with very small amounts of money, sometimes just a few dollars to start. There are also options like real estate crowdfunding platforms or easily accessible digital assets that allow you to participate in building ownership with relatively modest sums compared to traditional methods.
So the barrier to entry, the initial fee to get in the game, has plummeted dramatically.
It really has. The key isn't hitting some financial grand slam on your very first try. That's not the goal. The key is simply starting, just getting in the game. It's about creating the habit of being an owner, not just a consumer. It's about building a new identity for yourself. The identity of someone who puts their money to work, someone who participates, even in a small way initially, in the growth of successful enterprises and assets.
And that shift in identity, seeing yourself as an owner, that feels maybe even more important than the initial dollar amount you invest.
It truly is transformative. Because when you begin investing, even if it's just small amounts, regularly and consistently, you stop seeing yourself as someone on the outside looking in at the world of wealth creation, passively just consuming things. You start seeing yourself as an active participant, a builder, an owner. You naturally begin to think differently. You think longer term. You start understanding the power of compounding growth more intuitively. You spot opportunities you might have missed before. And you naturally become more engaged and more strategic with your money overall. Because now it's not just sitting there, it's actively working for you.
But that belief investing is only for the rich, it puts up such a huge mental wall, doesn't it? It stops people before they even explore the possibility.
It tells you to wait. It convinces you you're not ready yet, you're not wealthy enough, maybe you're not smart enough. And waiting is the absolute enemy of compound growth and building financial momentum. Waiting kills potential. It keeps you firmly planted on the consumer side of the economic equation, forever giving your money to the owners instead of taking steps to become one yourself.
The clarifying reframe here is so powerful and direct. You don't need a fortune to start investing. You need to invest to build your fortune.
Investing is fundamentally an act of faith in your own future. It's a concrete habit that signals your intention to build wealth, not just wish for it. If the identity of investor has always felt alien or exclusive to you, like it belongs to some other group of people, challenge that feeling right now. Your money won't magically multiply just sitting idle in a low-interest savings account. It grows by intention, by being strategically put to work as an owner.
Wow. Okay, we've uncovered 6 incredibly pervasive, often limiting beliefs about money. Now let's turn to the 7th and final one for today. This one might be the most deeply ingrained, the most culturally taboo, and perhaps the silent enforcer that keeps many of the others firmly locked in place.
Yes, the deeply held belief that talking about money is wrong, or rude, or impolite, or just uncomfortable.
This one often operates entirely in the shadows, doesn't it? It's not usually a belief someone states out loud directly, but it's powerfully communicated through discomfort, through avoidance, through awkward silences. Money is widely considered rude to talk about openly, too private, too personal. Talking about it if you have some feels like bragging or being crass. Talking about it if you don't have enough feels like complaining or admitting failure or being needy. So mostly people just don't.
Just think back for a moment about the programming you personally received around this specific topic. Were your parents or guardians open and transparent about their finances? Do they openly discuss their income, their expenses, their debts, their savings goals with you or even with each other? Did they teach you practical skills like how to negotiate for your worth or discuss how money actually works in the real world, things like interest rates, taxes, investing? For the vast majority of people, the answer is no. Explicit money talk was either completely absent, or it was fraught with tension, secrecy, maybe even shame.
So the implicit message landed loud and clear, even without words. Good people don't talk about money. Keep it to yourself. Don't ask questions. Don't share details. Just Don't go there. It's
Yeah.
taboo.
And here's the core, fundamental problem with that pervasive culture of silence. When something is effectively made unspeakable, it automatically becomes unquestionable. Think about that. And what you cannot question, you cannot challenge. And what you cannot challenge, you definitely cannot change.
Wow. That's a really profound connection. You literally can't alter your relationship with money in a meaningful way if you can't even discuss the topic openly, honestly, without shame or fear.
Exactly. This enforced silence around money breeds so much unnecessary shame, making you feel totally isolated with your financial struggles or even with your financial accomplishments. You feel alone either way. It breeds confusion. You genuinely don't know what's normal for income in your field, what's fair compensation, what healthy financial habits actually look like in practice, because nobody talks about the specifics. It breeds isolation. You feel like you have to figure absolutely everything out completely alone, navigating this complex world by yourself instead of learning from others' experiences or supporting each other through shared challenges. You don't know what your peers are earning, so you hesitate to negotiate effectively for a higher salary. You feel uncomfortable discussing your financial goals even with a partner, so they remain vague, powerless wishes instead of concrete plans. You avoid asking for help with managing debt or creating a budget, which just prolongs the struggle unnecessarily.
Now, contrast that picture with people or communities where talking about money openly and constructively is normalized. What happens there?
They learn exponentially faster. It's that simple. They share insights, practical strategies, valuable resources. They normalize healthy financial habits and conversations. They build supportive networks where people encourage each other's financial growth. They challenge limiting assumptions together. They gain confidence, clarity, and a sense of shared empowerment around money. It's a completely different energy.
And thinking bigger picture, who ultimately benefits the most when the vast majority of people remain silent, isolated, and maybe even confused when it comes to money?
Well, arguably, the existing system benefits. As the sources we looked at emphasize, as long as people remain uncomfortable talking openly about being underpaid, about the true crushing costs of high-interest debt, about their lack of savings progress, about how wealth is actually built, not just through hard work alone, they remain fundamentally disempowered. They're far less likely to challenge unfair wages or predatory lending practices or systemic economic inequalities if they can't even talk about these things without feeling shame or awkwardness. They stay stuck in the dark, individually, while those who understand and actively utilize financial principles continue to benefit from that widespread lack of transparency and conversation.
So talking about money isn't really about being crass or materialistic or greedy at all.
No, it's about empowerment. It's about gaining knowledge. It's about taking conscious control of your financial destiny instead of letting hidden beliefs or external forces dictate it. It's how we learn practical skills, how we grow our confidence, how we advocate effectively for ourselves and for others, and ultimately how we build a more financially literate, transparent, and equitable society for everyone. It's also how we model healthy, open relationships with money for our children and within our communities, breaking these damaging cycles of silence for the next generation.
The reframe that powerfully breaks this silence is talking about money isn't impolite, it's powerful.
And yes, let's be honest, stepping into that, choosing to speak up, might feel incredibly awkward or uncomfortable at first. You are pushing against decades, maybe centuries, of deep societal conditioning. But every single time you choose to have an open, honest conversation about money, whether that's setting clear financial boundaries with family members, confidently negotiating your salary based on your value, discussing investment strategies with a trusted friend, or simply asking a financial question you feel unsure about, you're performing an act of personal liberation. You give yourself permission to know more and do better, and crucially, you give others permission too. You make the invisible visible. You start turning a potential source of shame into a source of shared strengths and strategic thinking. You shift from silence to strategy.
Okay, so there you have it. 7 deeply ingrained, often toxic money beliefs that have likely been quietly shaping your financial reality, influencing your daily choices, impacting your confidence levels, and maybe limiting your potential far more than you consciously realized.
And shining a clear light on these beliefs, just becoming aware of them, that is the absolutely essential first step. Seeing the invisible script you've been handed is crucial. You can't change what you don't see.
But simply knowing the script exists isn't enough to change the play, is it? What comes next? Where do we go from just awareness?
Right. As the material for this deep dive really emphasizes, awareness without corresponding action doesn't actually change anything substantial. It just becomes interesting information, maybe intellectual noise. The true power, the potential for real transformation, lies in actively, intentionally rewriting that inherited script, consciously replacing those old limiting programs with new beliefs that actively support the financial freedom and the life you truly want to build.
But can we really change something that feels so fundamental, so deeply woven into our identity, into how we see the world and ourselves?
Absolutely, yes. Because remember, beliefs are not immutable facts carved in stone. They are simply thoughts, ideas, narratives that have been repeated so consistently, either by you internally or by others around you externally, that they've become deeply wired into your brain and your nervous system. They feel like undeniable truths, but they aren't. And the good news is, what has been programmed can absolutely be reprogrammed with conscious effort and practice.
Okay, I'm ready. Walk us through how we actually start that reprogramming process. What are the steps?
Great. The material outlines a really powerful 5-step approach to actively rewriting your money story. Let's break it down. Step 1. Identify the root. Start by picking the one belief among the 7 we discussed today that resonated most strongly with you personally. The one that made you think, ooh, yeah, that's me. Or the one that seemed to explain a persistent pattern or frustration in your life. Get clear on which one feels most active for you right now. Now write it down clearly. Then do a little gentle digging with curiosity, not judgment. Where did you first encounter this belief? Who in your life modeled it most strongly? What were the circumstances surrounding it back then? And importantly, ask yourself this. How did this belief potentially serve and protect you in the past? Maybe believing money was scarce kept you from taking risks that seemed genuinely scary at the time, or maybe believing hard work was everything helped you fit in or gain approval. Acknowledging its past function, even if misguided, can reduce your internal resistance to changing it now. But then you have to confront the present reality. How is this belief actively holding you back or limiting you right now? Get really clear on its current cost. This first step is purely about gaining deep awareness of the belief's origin and its present-day impact.
Got it. Understanding its history and really feeling its present cost. Makes sense.
Exactly. Step 2. Break the pattern. This is all about interrupting the automatic, unconscious loop. The very next time that old belief surfaces, maybe as a negative thought, a familiar feeling of resistance or anxiety, or a habitual hesitation you need to pause, just stop for a second. Notice the internal story that's playing out. Recognize the feeling, and then consciously name it. Give it a label. For instance, if you're presented with an opportunity that involves asking for significantly more money, and you feel that immediate wave of discomfort or guilt wash over you, pause, recognize the feeling, and say, either internally or even whisper it out loud.
There it is.
That's the old belief about not deserving more. That's just the old programming running. That is not my truth anymore, and I am consciously choosing not to follow it right now.
Simply identifying the belief as separate from you and consciously stating your non-alignment with it creates vital psychological distance. You become the observer of the thought, not its prisoner.
Creating that space between me, my core self, and the inherited belief pattern. I like that. Precisely. You're asserting conscious choice in that moment. Then comes step 3. Install a new belief. Nature abhors a vacuum, right? You can't just delete the old program. You need to actively replace it with an empowering alternative. So ask yourself, what do I genuinely want to believe about money, about wealth, about my own potential in this area? What would a financially empowered future version of me believe, and how would they act in this exact situation? Formulate that desired state into a clear, positive present tense statement. A reframe, an affirmation, a mantra, whatever resonates with you. It should feel inspiring, maybe even a little bit exciting, even if it feels slightly aspirational or not quite true yet. Use the reframes we discussed earlier as inspiration, or craft your own. Money is a tool that allows me to live fully and give generously. I'm worthy and capable of earning significant abundance doing work I love. My success creates opportunity and inspires others. Once you have your new belief clearly articulated, you need to repeat it constantly. Write it on sticky notes and put them where you'll see them every day. Your bathroom mirror, your desk, your car dashboard. Make it your phone, lock screen, or computer background. Say it out loud when you wake up and before you go to sleep. And critically, whenever that old feeling of resistance or the old thought pattern pops up, immediately counter it by consciously returning to your new mantra. Consistent, focused repetition is literally how you build new neural pathways in your brain.
So you're consciously, deliberately uploading the new software package over the old one.
You are actively programming your brain for a different, better outcome. Then comes step 4, rewire through action. This step is absolutely non-negotiable for lasting change. Beliefs change most rapidly and most powerfully through aligned behavior. Your brain and nervous system learn what is true primarily by observing what you consistently do. So if you want to genuinely believe you are an investor, you need to take an investment action, even if it's starting by investing just $10 or $20 into a broad market index fund this week. If you want to truly believe you deserve more financially, you need to take an action that asserts your value, like practicing your salary negotiation script out loud, or actually pitching a client at a higher rate, even if your voice shakes a little while you do it. You absolutely do not need to wait until you feel 100% belief or total confidence before you act. In fact, it usually works the other way around. Take the action first, even imperfectly. That action will create new evidence in the real world. And real-world evidence is the single most potent catalyst for transforming your internal identity and solidifying your new belief.
So the action actually precedes and then builds the feeling of believing or being worthy. It's not waiting for the feeling first.
Exactly. You act as if you are the person you want to become, the one who holds the new belief, and your internal state gradually catches up as the positive evidence from your actions mounts. And finally, step 5, curate your environment. You need to consciously recognize that your beliefs are constantly being either reinforced or challenged by the people you spend time with, the information you consume, and the physical and digital spaces you inhabit. It's incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, to adopt new beliefs about abundance and possibility if you're constantly surrounded by scarcity thinking, negativity, and financial complaining. So you need to actively, intentionally design your environment to support your new desired money mindset. Seek out and consume content books, podcasts, articles, videos that promotes healthy, empowering financial ideas and possibilities. Connect with people who have a positive, constructive relationship with money, people who are also striving for growth, who normalize conversations about wealth building and financial health. Find your supportive tribe. Have intentional conversations with trusted friends, mentors, or family members who genuinely support your financial goals and who will encourage you, rather than pulling you back into old, limiting ways of thinking.
Yeah, because trying to build wealth, adopt an abundance mindset while swimming in a community where money is a forbidden, shameful, or constantly negative topic?
Right.
That's like trying to swim upstream in molasses.
It truly is. Upgrade your inputs, the quality of the conversations you have, the nature of the content you consume, the mindset of the people you spend the most time with, and your internal beliefs will naturally begin to align with this new, more supportive reality. And please, as you go through this 5-step process, be incredibly patient and compassionate with yourself. These limiting beliefs likely took years, often decades, to become so deeply installed. They won't magically disappear overnight. There will absolutely be moments of resistance. You'll probably slip back into old thought patterns sometimes. Waves of doubt will likely wash over you. That's all normal. But every single time you consciously catch the old belief, choose your new reframe instead, and take even one small action aligned with your new truth, you are sending a powerful, undeniable signal to your brain, to your nervous system, and frankly, to the universe.
You're essentially telling your entire system, loud and clear, hey, we're not operating on that old limited programming anymore. We are actively, intentionally reprogramming for financial freedom, for greater impact, and for a life of much bigger possibility.
And that consistent signal, repeated day after day through awareness and deliberate action, is exactly what builds the new neural pathways and eventually makes the new empowering beliefs feel like your natural default reality.
And that brings us perfectly to a powerful final challenge for you, listening right now. Something designed to help you take everything we've discussed today and really integrate it, make it tangible, starting immediately.
The core question, really, after exploring these 7 common toxic beliefs, boils down to this. What will you choose to believe now, moving forward from this moment? You've pulled back the curtain, you've seen these powerful, often invisible forces that have likely been shaping your financial reality, your choices, perhaps even your sense of self-worth for years. You've seen how they might have been quietly holding you back.
The awareness is here now. You can see the script you didn't even know you were following before today.
And the pivot point, the moment of choice, is always now. Not sometime in the vague future when circumstances magically feel perfect, not after you hit some arbitrary income level, but right here, in this present moment, in the choices you make about which thoughts and which beliefs you will continue to give your energy and power to.
Now is the moment you decide if money is potentially a tool for good in your hands, not just an inevitable source of corruption. Now is when you decide if building wealth is actually a possibility for people like you, not just for some other group of them. Now is when you decide that talking about money isn't shameful or impolite, but actually necessary and powerful for growth. Now is when you decide that your potential, your future, your dreams are simply too important, too valuable to leave in the hands of outdated, limiting beliefs you unconsciously inherited from others.
So here's a concrete challenge for you, drawn right from the material, designed specifically to help you move from insight into tangible, real-world transformation, starting today.
Pick just one. One toxic money belief from our deep dive today, the one that felt like it struck the deepest chord for you personally, the one that's been living rent-free in your mind and creating the most friction or limitation in your financial life recently. Just choose one to focus on first.
Good. Got it. Now take that specific belief and write out a new, empowering belief statement to replace it. Use the reframes we discussed as a starting point, or create your own that feels powerful and true for you. But make it a clear, positive, present tense statement about the truth you choose to embody from now on.
Next, speak that new belief out loud with conviction every single day, maybe first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and put it somewhere you will physically see it constantly throughout your day. Write it on your bathroom mirror with a dry erase marker. Make it your phone wallpaper. Stick a note on your computer monitor or your fridge. Make it a constant visual and mental trigger.
And now, this is the crucial part, the part that locks in the shift and makes it real. Take one specific action this week, just one that directly reflects and reinforces your new belief.
Just one step. It doesn't have to be massive or earth-shattering. It just needs to be aligned with the new belief. It could be finally researching and then asking for that raise, you've earned but have been putting off. It could be deciding to open an investment account and put just $5 or $10 into a simple broad market index fund this week. It could be starting to outline or build that side hustle or creative project you truly believe in, the one that aligns with your value. It could be initiating an open, honest conversation about money goals with your partner or a trusted friend, a conversation you've been actively avoiding out of discomfort.
Whatever that one action is, make it real. Make it specific to you and the particular belief you're working on changing. Take that tangible step that proves to yourself, to your own nervous system, and to the world around you that the new belief isn't just a nice idea, it's now the operational one you're living by.
Because remember the core principle here. Your beliefs shape your behavior. And consistently, your behavior shapes your reality.
This whole journey, this process of rewriting your money story, it isn't really about trying to become someone completely new or different. It's much more about returning to the powerful, capable version of you that was always there, hidden beneath the layers of inherited programming and societal conditioning. It's about reconnecting with the version of you that is unafraid of healthy growth, unashamed of ambition that serves a genuine purpose, and unwilling to remain silent about your value or your desire to create a life of profound freedom, contribution, and positive impact. From that place, operating from those new, consciously chosen beliefs as your foundation, everything truly begins to change.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Grow Leap Academy. If this sparked something in you, an insight, a question, a shift, don't let it fade. Share it, reflect on it, and keep growing. We'll see you next time. Until then, think boldly, live freely, and believe bigger.